review. The one item, the school tour, we're gonna just move that to the very end of the meeting. It's still gonna happen, we're just gonna do it at the end. I have no amendments unless anybody else has one. Hearing none, we'll move on to correspondence, visitors, and public comments. We have lots of visitors, so.
We do.
Yeah, it's nice.
Any comments? Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda, approval of the meeting minutes from August 6th. I'll entertain a motion to approve those.
I'll make that.
A second?
Second.
Who was that?
Is that Debbie?
Sorry. Okay, discussion.
I have a couple things I'd like to review or look at changing. First off, the SRO grant opportunity. I'd like to see that spelled out, so at least the first time. So, it's school resource officer, is that what it is?
Mhm.
So everybody's clear on what it is. So, at least for the first time, if that's spelled out, and that way people know what we're talking about. And then on the second sentence, the state grant paid for 3 years of the SRO and local budget pays for the 4th year. It makes it sound like it's already done. I'd like to restate that to say the state grant would pay for the first 3 years of the SRO, and the MVSD would need to budget to pay for the 4th year. And the next sentence, the position will be shared between Swanton and Highgate because that is where the greatest need is. I know we talked about Franklin at that meeting, but that's not what I came away with. That's what we were going to do. I'd like to either reword that or just remove that sentence.
Because I'd like to comment on that too, as I read these, and I finally got to the last sentence. Because I think I'm the one that said I really wanted to make certain if we did it, that we looked at it at district level, and that that's where I guess you got the sentence, which I did say I'd like to hear from Joyce Hakey to see how they might use it. And I think my language was, if this is going to be sold as a prevention and learning to respect police and be in a positive nature, then all students need that. If we're looking for the criminal element, then just some of the Swanton, you got the PD and we'll be all
I
right.
don't know.
But no, seriously, I think that should be reworked because, and going back to Peter said, Peter, just a suggestion, I would put a 4th year, any years beyond the 3, because we might go a 4th year, a 5th year, or 6th year, but I certainly like your idea that we make it very clear to the public that beyond 3, it's ours.
And I've got a few things here, and I'm not trying to be picky, but I know that our minutes get scrutinized and they get brought back up in future meetings, so I just want to make sure that we're clear in what we're stating. And the only other thing I would ask for future minutes, if we could have line numbers, because it makes it easier to point out where we're making corrections, if you can point out the line number. In that same paragraph of the SRO grant opportunity, the one where it starts, they are in the building relationships with kids, and it is pretty positive. I'd kind of like to reword that to their intent is to build relationship with kids and create a positive environment. Just sounds better.
I think that's a matter of, it was the tape recorder instead of in person.
Yeah.
So I think it was difficult to
Believe me, I'm
make
not.
sense of the tape recorder that's here.
I am not
instead of-
criticizing minute takers. It's a job that I would want. And
Oh, I
I know
do
it's
it, that's for
difficult.
sure.
I'm just trying to make sure that we have
Yeah.
as accurate as we can. And that brings me to the next one where it starts with Dina is very much in support of the position. I just want to change that to Dina stated to Julie she is very much in support of the position because I don't believe Dina was there and I don't want it to look like in the future that she was at the meeting, which she actually wasn't. So that, just to clear that up. If you go to food service management contract, the last two sentences. If the participation or claims rate falls, we may have to give the free breakfast program. It just doesn't read right.
Well, I think give up the free breakfast program. I missed the up on that.
I'd rather it say evaluate.
Evaluate?
Mhm,
All right.
If that's okay.
And then the next sentence starts out with a number, 160,000 lunches we fed and 240,000 breakfasts each year. I think it would sound better if we started with, we provide 160,000 lunches and 240,000 breakfasts each year. And the last sentence is, it is good that this goes to everybody.
I think that was a tape recorder attempt to transcribe something from the tape recorder.
Yeah, I just
As
think,
the intent of that statement we made was that it is good that we're able to feed all the kids breakfast, for
Yes.
example.
Yeah.
That was the conversation we were having.
and then under the superintendent's report, the last sentence, what will things look like at this law change? Do we need that? I don't know. It stands out to me.
I think that was just something that was said again. It was
Yeah.
transcribing. I just will remove that.
And then 2 paragraphs down, the last sentence, it encourages more young women to explore these trades that were not typically been considered. I think if we put, it encourages more young women to explore these trades that had not typically been considered, or been typically considered, either way. Just a reword. And then my last point, the last bullet point, and it's, I don't understand it, that's all. I'm not saying it's wrong. The Highgate classroom was moved and is on track to be licensed mid-August. I'm not sure what that means.
That was an early childhood program.
Preschool classroom.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor of adopting the meeting minutes as adjusted, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Aye.
Motion carries 701. Okay, we're gonna move on to presentations. We have SWAT PD here to give us a presentation on the SRO grant.
Thank you. Please,
We stand up front.
come right up front.
My bad.
Well, maybe not right there.
I was saying, I have to get a little
Could put black right.
Good evening, my name is David Kachaja. I'm a lieutenant with the Swanton Village Police Department. I'm the commanding officer of the School Resource Officer Unit for our agency. I just want to, on behalf of our chief of police and all of our officers just want to thank you for allowing us to come here tonight and to speak with all of you about what we'd like to propose having a school resource officer in the school district. As a general rule of thumb, what we were looking for, and I know there was, I heard you speaking earlier, bringing it up, we're looking to have, at this point, one officer to be able to cover Swanton, Highgate, and Franklin. Obviously, that would be up to the school board and the superintendent as to which schools you'd like to have that officer in, but originally when we were thinking of this, we wanted to try to have as much coverage and exposure to the children as we could, and that's why we were looking at covering the 3 schools. As far as the program itself, I'm going to turn that over to Officer Cleary. He is our SRO and our school resource officer. He's been a school resource officer for well over 10 years, I imagine, and the success he's had at Missisquoi Valley Union High School has been nothing but outstanding. The children love him, the teachers love him, and he's done tremendous work with these kids. So at that point, I'll get back into more specifics later on, but I just want to give you an overview of the program if you wouldn't mind.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. If you'd like, we can start with any questions you might have about the position of SRO, what the SRO does, what the SRO position entails. Generally, to start off, the mission of the SRO in school is to protect the student community, the school community, the people who work there, the children who attend there. My primary duty is to make sure nothing happens to them. And that involves interdicting and threats that may present themselves at school or within the school community itself. That's the basic and most important factor that the SRO program brings to the school. That's the controlling factor. Now, we're very fortunate. We don't have threats of weapons and violence every single day. But what we do have are a lot of needy kids, and a lot of good kids, and a lot of kids who have a lot, and a lot of kids who have none. And that's where I come in. I work very closely with our Director of Student Affairs and our Behavioral Wellness Coach to try to do what we can to keep kids out of the criminal justice system. I don't believe in arresting kids generally. I believe that in an academic environment, we have a rich bank of people who know children. And a collaboration between a police officer assigned to the school, embedded at the school, interacting with the educator is rich, and it's powerful, and it's positive. We have many interactions every day, every week, every month, with any number of students at the school that involve that alliance. We are an alliance with the school, from the principal and the co-principal, all the way down to classroom teachers who are delivering the education. Policing a school is not what I do, because we don't police an educational institution. We react, we respond, of course, but we also try to get out ahead of issues. And every day, if you come to my school, you will find me with Mr. Messier or Mr. Quinlan. They are the Director of Student Affairs, and Mr. Quinlan is the Behavioral Wellness Coach. And we are collaborating and conferring on youngsters with problems, difficulties, how to better support the classroom, how to improve the environment for young people and make it safe at school. We have a wonderful environment in MVU right now. I think we make remarkable strides, and we're pushing on, looking forward to a really good year. But it's all about, if you like kids, if your kids like you, they're more amenable when they come to the classroom to be educated. The classroom teacher has enough on his hands today without collateral threats and basically obstinance and violence. And we work very hard every day to make sure that we have an academic atmosphere that's conducive to that. I didn't realize we were going to get this involved tonight, but I would have been a little better prepared. But if you want, you can go in and look at my web page on the Swan Police Department. You will see my philosophy and how I feel. We don't have a situation anymore where we're building relationships. We're building all relationships. The relationships are solid with most of our young people, to the point that I get calls after hours. And because I get calls after hours, at all hours of the day and night, at times, we've been able to avert a lot of tragedy. And I've been able to keep the school officials informed of who's having a problem, who we need to work with, who's coming to school today who's had a bad night, things haven't gone well at home. Those types of things that educators need to know, so that they can make better informed decisions when they're trying to manage a student. The idea is to educate and provide a future for every child in that school. And I tutor. I have opened up my classrooms down at CCV to the students at the school, because I'm trying to remove the mystique of college attendance. I've done that now for 10 years. Any one of the students is welcome to come to my classes to sit in. A number of them have. A number of them have come and stayed for the entire class. We have a really good communication system. They call me Kev, and I call them whatever they want to call. All the formality usually associated with official relationships is gone. And that's why that we talk about violence, we talk about suicide, we talk about all of those issues, and that's why I get calls at night to intervene. I intervened quite a few times this year after hours in matters relating to suicide. And we're constantly looking at young people all day long to see where they are emotionally, and making sure that we're on top of it. Are there any questions? I think might even be a little easier for that. A few questions.
I have them. I think you answered it for me. When you, like, it's not just when they're at school, it's also how, if their home life is, what they're bringing in from their home. Is that what you were saying?
Yes, we're a society, and the school is a microcosm of the larger society. So what comes to school, what problems and issues and strengths and weaknesses we have as a society come to school.
Right.
And it's with the clientele, with the student body, and other people associated with education, along with the classroom teacher and the administration, that we try to deliver an education. It's a mosaic.
You're talking about MVU, middle school, high school. What do you see as the differences in going to the elementary school and the different challenges and what you would have to do there?
Elementary school, I can't speak on elementary schools with any great authority. But Mr. Messier, and those that are with us tonight, you need to get to know him. He's a very fine fellow. And his colleague, and my colleague, Mr. Quinlan, is also somebody very knowledgeable about children, their problems and difficulties. Will tell you that one of their goals is to take the educational strategies that we are using right now and hopefully have them implemented system-wide. And we meld education and law enforcement in one strategy. I think if we develop proper relationships that we want, that we think will advance them, I think we'll have a calmer student, a student who's used to being around authority figures, somebody who's their friend, somebody who is their ally, somebody they can talk to, somebody that they're comfortable with, and that makes the educational process at the elementary level a lot richer. And if we want to bring calm, we want them to be at ease, because it's easier to educate a student that's at ease. They have a better ability to engage the educational process than a student who comes to school upset, disoriented. And if they do come at that age, we have a wonderful person to start with. down at this one school who takes care of everybody every morning, and she does a wonderful job. But the idea is to start from the first grade with these new strategies and come forward so that the student that comes and matriculates into the 7th grade is already there. They're at ease, they're comfortable, they have developed skills that allow them to engage with people, and that's very, very important. Children, right now, as I see it, from my vantage point, have no one to talk to. They have no one to talk to. And the people that they're meeting on the streets become their first frame of reference, or they rely on their peers. And it doesn't work out. I've said to them before, I don't want you making any decisions at 2 o'clock in the morning, probably. And that's the way it should be. I work with a wonderful group of people that couldn't ask for any better. Mr. Hartman and Dan, they're joined at the hip, and they are pursuing a quality education for everyone. They want the kids to learn, and they want them to succeed. And that's the same, that's where I'm coming from as well.
If I could just build on what Officer Cleary said, one of our big purposes in doing this, like he indicated, is we want the kids to trust law enforcement, to feel safe at school. And it goes beyond the kids too, is we want the staff there to feel safe. Me personally, when I was, we're on our drive up here tonight, I have 2 reasons why I really wanted to push this program. When I first started working for SWAT a couple of years back, I was a police officer down in Montpelier for 11 years. Came up here and I got a call one morning from, the school down on Church Street, the Connections, I believe it was, wasn't it?
Connect, we have a
Yep.
Connect program, but that's on Canada Street.
No, this one's on Church Street. It's inside the elderly housing complex there. And I got a call from one of the teachers there, and she had a concern that the children were out on the playground, little ones. And evidently, one of our cruisers drove by, and the kids just ran up to the playground area, and one of the teachers asked them, well, why did you do that? Well, what's wrong? What's the problem? And they said, it's the police. They kill people. And that didn't sit well with me. I went there and ended up talking with those kids. Growing up in Massachusetts, I trusted police officers. It bothered me to hear that. And I loved going down to school, talking to those kids to set their minds at ease. I'm not sure where they were getting that whole thing. Maybe it's the media, maybe it's parents, I don't know. But that didn't sit well with me. So one of the things I wanted to do, I know we had Kevin in the schools already, I wanted to spread it out where we were getting them at a younger age to learn that we're not their enemies, that adults aren't their enemies, that we want to be there to help them. And the second thing that actually prompted me with this was an issue we had at Swanton last year, at Swanton Elementary School. I'm not going to name the individual, but we had a parent who was causing extreme problems there. I remember I was there on average 4 days a week, I believe every Friday you were there. And I know that it frightened the children, it frightened the parents, pretty sure it frightened the staff at the school. And that was something I said to myself, if we had somebody here, it would deal with a lot of these problems and make the staff and the children feel safer. Matter of fact, walking through the schools, I had a trainee with me one day when I was walking through there, and the children didn't really know what to make of us. They looked frightened of us. And again, I don't want that to be the case. I want children to trust us. I want them to be able to go to school and be comfortable and to go there to learn. That's what schools are for. If you put it plain and simple, we want our children to go to schools. We want them to feel safe. We want the teachers to feel safe. We don't want them to go there and be stressed out, because then that doesn't accomplish the purpose of education. And again, I think it's important to inject the school resource officer into, whether it's this school district, any school district. I think it's important just to build those bridges to make everybody there feel safe and secure, because the primary purpose of an SRO is to be there for the security of the children and the staff and the parents when they come to pick them up, any type of meetings they might have. Unfortunately, in this day and age, in our world, it can be an unpleasant place sometimes. Just turn on the television. And unfortunately, a lot of these situations have not ended well. And our mission, having an SRO in the school, is to make sure those things don't happen or to try to stop them as quickly as possible. So again, safety of the children is primary, and again, building those bridges. And that's why for me personally, I think it's important to have that. I'm not a parent, I can't imagine, I'm sure everybody here is a parent, but if I had children, I want them to be safe and sound when they went to school, because I'm not there, or my wife wouldn't be there, or if any of you have children, we're not there to keep an eye on them. The teachers are there, and potentially a school resource officer who can mean the difference between something really bad happening and maybe them having a fighting chance. So again, it's important, and it's like I said, that whole issue with that teacher calling us and asking us to come over to the school to talk to the kids because they said that the police killed people. They just did similar. So that's one of the reasons I'm really pushing this, and I feel passionate about it. And also, I don't want to put too much burden on Officer Cleary, but we do have a candidate in mind, and I would like to give him an opportunity to talk if anybody has any questions. This is Officer Dean Scott. He just recently graduated from the Naz Road School for a school resource officer. He's now nationally certified to be an SRO. And since I started working here, Officer Scott has asked, he said, if we have another SRO position open up, I'd like to do it. And I think he's going to have a passion for it. And even all the years I've known him, I've known him for years, even before I came back up here from Montpelier and I worked with the sheriff's office. But I've seen him work with kids. He's great with the kids. He's patient. He's kind and compassionate. And I can't think of a better candidate to be an SRO than Officer Scott. Don't get a big head. Shake his hand. But I feel that way. And you can ask any of our coworkers. We have a lot of respect for Officer Scott, and we really think he would be a fantastic addition to the SRO program. So not to put him on the spot, but I would like to turn it over to him again. If you have any specific questions, you had mentioned how the program would be run in an elementary school. Probably the gentleman who would be able to run with that is the best person to ask. So I turn it over to Officer
Again,
Scott.
my name is Dean Scott. I've been in law enforcement for 16, 17 years now. Worked for the Sheriff Department, Air Patrol and PB for the last 10. Also worked in EMS. I've been in EMS for 30 years. Now a nationally registered paramedic, licensed in the state of Vermont to practice paramedicine. Getting a little older now. I've got 4 kids that are all older. I've got 7 grandkids, so I know how the kids are. Know from this size up. Like to work with them. I've worked with Officer Cleary a few times in the last few years at MVU. Got to learn the kind of the ropes a little bit, how he does things, and seeing the kids that he's dealt with in the school and deal with them same kids on the road. It's a different thing. He's done such a great job out there to change their attitude, their way of life. I don't see that when I used to work at the Sheriff's Department. Before we had a lot of SROs, the kids were awful. I mean, not saying we're going to change all kids and make them better, but they have more respect for things. And they got somebody to talk to. One of the kids that Officer Perry mentioned before, they have no one to go to. If they don't have their parents, So they have somebody that they can relate to, and especially at school, because that's where they are. They spend a lot of time there. You guys know. So that's basically what we're trying to do, build that relationship with these kids and start earlier, so we can kind of transition to high school and make sure that kind of smooth all the way through. That's the goal. Any questions?
Well, I have a question about your timeline for the board, because we wanted to hear from you, and we wanted to then talk with principals, and then the board will make its decision about whether to move forward with the grant, because it is a commitment, yet we want to be respectful of the fact that grants have timelines. So, do you know when you're going to need an answer from this group?
I actually spoke with the Department of Justice today. Unfortunately, our federal judicial system is having issues right now. So the school resource officer grant was supposed to be opening up a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
There was a federal lawsuit because of disagreements about local law enforcement interacting with federal law enforcement. So unfortunately, the federal government put the kibosh on some grants, and then it went to the court system. A couple weeks ago, I was told by the Department of Justice that it was going to open up pretty much this week.
Mm-hmm.
I called them today just to double check because I hadn't seen the email, and I was told someone, even though they won the court case and the grant was opened up, unfortunately someone went ahead and appealed it. And so it's gonna be 2 months before the grant opens up. After that,
Mhm.
be a 3-month window to complete the grant.
Okay.
So potentially we could be looking at, we don't have a hard set date. Obviously, we're very flexible with this. It will be a matter of applying for the grant, making sure those funds are accounted for and that we're getting that money. And then we would have the money for the first 3 years of the grant, and then obviously the school system would be responsible for the fourth with, after that, it would be the discretion of the school system whether they wanted to continue with that program. Nationally, it usually stays. I don't think I've ever heard of a school system that's gotten rid of it once they adopted it. It's a fantastic program.
Yeah, as we discussed, every school I worked in had a school resource officer in at least one of the schools, and they all started with these grants and then just really found that it became an integral and important part of the fabric of the school community. So I was worried because when we spoke before the grant timeline, we were thinking that it was going to be a fairly quick turnaround. So sometimes delays are helpful because it gives people more time for deliberation, and that hopefully,
Oh, absolutely. And actually, it's nice for me because I'd be the one writing the grant, and sometimes they can be slow going, especially with federal grants, if they're not my favorite thing to do. But with this, we would have plenty of time. Like I said, it would be, right now we're looking at 2 months from what the representative from the DOJ told me today. And then after that, they give you about a 3-month window to complete the grant. And the plus about this, though, is that this grant has been, litigation has been going on for 2 years now. And basically, the grants for 2018 and 2019, that money's sitting in the bank, basically, with the federal government. So that money is there. It's just a matter of if you can get your paperwork in, they would make a decision, let's say maybe December, January. Then it will be pretty quickly after that. And then, again, at the discretion of schools, what they would like to do and when they would like to start the program.
Okay. All right. That helps us a lot. Thank you.
Also, we don't need a rock. You don't have to say, we want an answer tonight. That's not the case. Our intent here to help is just to inform and educate everybody about what the program is. Yes, sir.
Shared services. Is he going to be involved in all the elementary and the high school at the same time, or?
No, it's specifically for the elementary school. Officer Clary is specifically assigned to the Missisquoi Valley High School, so that's his particular duty. He would have no, if he needed to help out here, that would be something they would obviously collaborate on, but Officer Scott would be solely dedicated to the elementary school. All of them?
Yes.
All 3 of them?
Yes. Again, if I believe you said earlier, you were thinking of just Highgate and Swanton, if that would be easier.
I think you misunderstood, I think.
Right. We were talking about our minutes and the general conversation. The administrative team of the elementary school is in support of this, but we would, as an administrative team, work with you should we go in this direction to discuss the specifics of what that support would look like. But we would want all the elementary schools to have that resource.
Yeah. Absolutely, and that was our intent to do that, to make sure that Franklin, Swanton, and Highgate benefit from the resources of the SRO.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other specific questions, or?
No, it says
Trying to kill us by this, Steve?
No, I'm just asking.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for coming out.
At this point, to continue this discussion, we'd like to hear from the principals that are here on their opinions of this.
Who do you want to start with?
Well, since it's elementary, I'll put Dina on the spot. We'll go there.
First, I thought Joyce so much. We have, in the time that I've been here, Swanton PD has been called to our building probably 5 or 6 times. One of our policies is if a student leaves our premises, not just like outside, but leaves the school grounds, they know, families know, we automatically call Swanton PD and they have come over. He cited last year's incident, which was a really big deal, and everything he said was very accurate. Another piece of that, Justina and I talked about, when they were there, they were doing all the right things, but for our community, we chose not to let everybody know why that they were there, because I didn't, at that time, we didn't feel like it was necessary information. We started thinking that if we had someone there every day, when things go on, it would be a natural part, and we wouldn't have to, because that communication is hard. It's not like we were hiding anything, and at the time, we felt very safe. If there was a need to communicate, we would, but that was another reason. There's not enough good that I can say. Anytime I have called, a couple of years ago, we had some pretty bigger 6th grade students, and there were times where they were physical to adults, and I just got on the phone and they were there. So that type of support has been outstanding. So those are like reactive things. I did discuss with another colleague in St. Albans at an elementary school what the bonus or what the positives were. He talked about relationships. He said kids would see this officer outside, say hello, in the community. One of the big things he said was some of those families, their interactions with the police are sometimes very scary and negative if they're showing up at homes to break up any type of disputes. So for them, it was really about those relationships as well. And when they started talking about that, I sometimes forget that kids have those different perspectives on our law enforcement. So, when Julie just said I don't believe that we need someone full-time, but it feels really good to have that partnership. And for Swanton, they are just right around the corner. For our other 2 schools, it's a little further, but I think the colleagueship and the relationships with kids and the teachers. I don't feel that our teachers feel unsafe in our building at the current time. But when something happens, just knowing that there is someone else there with a little bit more authority than just us. So I don't know if you want to add anything.
The only one thing I'll kind of add on to that was we had an incident a couple of years ago at MBU. There was a day when we knew Kevin was going to be out. We got some information that a parent was coming, really upset. We actually called Swanton PD, and this was about 7:15 in the morning. Called Swanton PD. Unfortunately, they don't open until 8 o'clock. So we got directed on to the state police barracks, and the state police were like, "We'll try to send somebody out." They never did. They were unable to. So I think that if you have that partnership, you have somebody there, somebody that you can contact. I have Officer Cleary's cell number. And we contact them as we need them. So it's a great thing to have if you need it. Hopefully you never need it, but when you do need it, it's great to have. And unfortunately, in the middle school, high school, we use it far too often than probably we need to. And Officer Cleary talked about the relationships that he does have with kids. He didn't touch upon the number of kids that come to him about other issues that are going on with other kids. He didn't touch upon that. I thought he would, because that's a large part of what he does. And he hears a lot of information about what's going on from kids that will come and talk to him because he's got that relationship with him.
Dan, were you there before there was a resource officer?
Yes.
I was just wondering
As a teacher.
if you noticed the climate's different, or what difference he's making.
I would say in this day and age, with everything that goes on in the media and all the stuff that you hear around school violence, and this goes for faculty as well. Faculty know when he's around and when he's not around, because they're on edge. And it really is. You can tell people are on edge when they hear about school shootings, and kids will talk about it, and they're really worried about it. And just his presence in the front lobby or his vehicle out in the front parking lot does a lot to squash a lot of those feelings or anxiety among kids, just knowing that he's there. Now, granted, we saw a large number of kids some kids who won't go and see him because, then again, they're not the type of kids who go out and seek out adults. But just knowing that he's there will kind of squash a lot of that anxiety for kids.
Almost, I assume, and one of my hopes would be an SRO officer would also participate in our school safety planning and be on our safety team and work with us on drills and evacuation procedures and really start to learn those inside and out, because we can and have invited SWAT and PD to take part in those in the past because they are our responding officers. But sometimes they're just busy and it's hard, and I would envision an SRO being a big part of that in all of the schools.
I think that just everything everybody has said about being proactive, not reacting to things, and just the education piece, I feel is really important. And also, you know, I have I really appreciated, I heard Dawn said, oh, I know what Joyce thinks about this. And I really appreciated that, because I was thinking about it one night and I thought, wow, everybody thinks there's more of a need in these other places. And sometimes I'm like, as you said, it takes a long time for somebody to get to Franklin. And a couple of times when we've had an emergency, that's a long time to get a response here. You know, nobody's fault. It just depends on, you know, where the state police might be. And you know, we've had a really good relationship with Border Patrol. They came here last year and we did a wonderful training and went through all of our safety procedures. But still, I think to have that as a shared resource and, you know, and having that person going around to all of the schools and the whole idea of building those relationships before they get to MVU and anything helping with that transition as kids are going from the elementary school to the middle school and high school, I just think is really valuable. And I hope that our kids all feel like they have somebody to talk to, but I think having another person to talk to is always really good too. The more people, the better. The kids feel like they can talk to and have a relationship with.
So when an officer talks with a child and has an issue with a child, is the parent contacted with this issue? Are the parents kept in the loop? So when he's talking to a lot of students, like he said, every day, blah, 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 are all these conversations passed on to the parents if there's a concern?
If it's a law enforcement issue, there are legal procedures around notification of parents. What he's talking about is prevention. He talks with kids. He makes sure, how are you doing, checking in. And I don't want to pretend to be Jim to answer for him.
Yes, I know.
But if there's a legal issue, you know, and I'm interceding as a law enforcement officer, then there are rules around notification of parents,
Because he can
absolutely.
even hear a physical problem or a mental problem that should be passed on to a parent.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we were involved. I mean, Jake can attest to my wife coming to school when we had issues with the kids. So my wife was hands-on with kids and she was hands-on with a lot of our nephews, which I think is what's missing. The parents need to be included, I think, in everything. So listening, I hear he has conversations with kids that are probably these parents don't know about. He says, yeah, they don't have anybody to talk to. I think if they had a chance, they could. We can't just.
I'm sure the schools that have a resource officer have protocols around that communication, but I just know, like for here, I don't want somebody else doing what I think is my job.
Right.
And, you know, I want to make sure I still know what's going on and that I'm communicating with parents. And I would expect that if we had an SRO here that was talking to kids about something and if something I needed to know about, that I would expect them to be telling me about it. If there's something that a parent needs to know, I'd be talking to that parent.
Yeah, so that's my issue. I want to make sure that the parents are kept 100% in the loop.
Officer Cleary has a lot of contact with guidance counselors as well. Obviously, Steve Mestier, Devin Quinlan, myself, Mr. Hardman, and we do notify parents.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I know it's hard nowadays to keep both, at least one parent home. I was fortunate enough to be able to leave my wife home with the kids, so that's just my thing. I really want to make sure that the parents are included in every issue.
Any other discussion?
I have a curiosity question, just because I'm a little bit confused, sort of, I guess. As far as for MDU goes, when he's working with administration there, does he coordinate also with the guidance counselors so that they can help step in? Because I'm sure that the SRO for MDU can't be there 24/7 for every single student in there. So are the guidance counselors working with him as well to work with the students? Or is he just taking it all upon himself?
No, so he'll have contact with the guidance counselors. He's worked really close conjunction with my middle school guidance counselors in the past and just said, hey, look, I hear some things about this, just to make you aware of it. That opens up a conversation with the guidance counselor to be able to start a conversation with the kid.
Okay.
So yes.
That was my concern. I didn't want the guidance counselors also to be left out of the loop.
No,
I think
no.
that they should be working with the children as
Yeah.
well.
No, absolutely.
So the two of them collaborating.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he used to go to the regular guidance meetings. I'm not so sure that he still does. He used to, but I know that the communication between Liz Tyler Meggs and Maggie Evans was huge. Absolutely huge.
That would be the thing, would be having that person become a member of each of our
Your
teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And wraparounds.
And I guess to build on that, what's the protocol for the lockdown? The program called Alice or something like this?
Yes.
I would expect this individual to be intimate with that program.
Yes.
Get the training and work side by side, hand in hand with the coordinators of that program, and really, I guess, take some ownership over, because I mean, that in line with their responsibility. And I don't know if that's something as we as a board can implement that or make sure that happens, or say, well, that's not part of my job. Well, then
That would be part of the job description. And that would be put into part of the job description. Officer Cleary works with all of us on the administrative team about all of that, and is instrumental and observes everything. We do invite law enforcement up. We do invite fire and rescue up whenever we do have evacuation drills, so they can kind of see it as well. But I think that if you had an SRO that worked with each school to say, okay, show me what it looks like. Now let's see it in place. They're able to take a look at it and say, you know what? This is what you think is happening, but this is really what's happening. I know that Kevin Cleary was that. But that would just be a normal part of the job description.
I would think that as this goes forward, if it goes forward, when it goes forward, whatever, that there'd be some dialogue with the board, because we want to hear what they traditionally do, but that doesn't mean that that's exactly what we want. I mean, I think probably pretty much we look at boilerplate responsibilities at MVU and elementary schools, but if there's something that's near and dear to this board, as Dan says it's already happening, like it wasn't already happening, and we said that's important, but it's in the job description. I mean, it is a board decision.
Yep, typically when I've gone through this before, I was part of the decision at St. Albans Town School to bring a school resource officer there. Obviously it's a different employer, different police department, but we looked carefully at the job description as an administrative team and in central office, and then that went before the board.
Good to see our administrators here tonight. Must be schools, we're just around the corner, huh?
This is sweet.
We benefited from our potluck today with all our leftovers.
So, any other discussion for the SRO grant?
Is it a full-time position for 3 years? Is that what it is?
4 years.
4 years, but it's full-time.
Yes, it is.
I have a question. When they say that it's funded for 3 years and then we pay the fourth year, what kind of money are we talking about? Did you guys already discuss that?
We didn't discuss it before. I think we would at a contract time, but it is the equivalent of salary and benefits of a full-time experienced teacher. So, it's something that we would have to ensure that in budgeting, we have years to plan for, find those efficiencies to make sure that it's a part of the budget without being an addition.
So fully funded for 3 years, the fourth year is on us.
Yes. And that's the
Every
extent
year
of our-
after the fourth. If the
After-
first three
right.
is fully funded, anything after is on us.
But we are obligated to fund that.
We'd be
Yes.
obligated, should you agree to do the grant, exactly. As he said, I've never worked anywhere where people didn't say, this is an important role in our school system, but our exposure is a single year.
Have you ever been in a situation where the resource officer was shared amongst schools full time?
Yes, not to the extent this is. I'm not sure whether in my previous district they now have a school resource officer at the city school. I think they may have their own now. But for years, there was somebody at the town, but when it came to things like, as you were describing, drills and any kind of situation that came, they would call the school resource officer often to be the responder to the other school because they have particular training to work in an elementary school or in the school setting. So yes, but before that, I worked in like Winooski or Milton, so
Right,
single
bigger.
places, yeah. Though I think in Milton, they had one school resource office for both campuses. They're within a short distance, but it was more than one building.
It will be a challenge. I love Franklin, but I think some of us, as we go up here, and I thought, it isn't a great distance, but at 35, 40 miles an hour, it takes your time to get here. They probably wouldn't obey that. But,
They have more leeway than you and I do, yes. I think absolutely should the board support this grant, the administrative team would work out with the department what the best use of the resource would be, and that would be, they would work on that and see what works. But it's something we want to make sure was available to all schools.
Do the administrators have any concern? It sounds like you're certainly willing to work together, but do you foresee, how it would work?
All I can say is probably if there was ever an emergency, chances of the SRO being in that building that day might not happen. Right, Murphy's Law. But for our colleagues, I do think we work very well together. So when we're looking at things proactively, I don't think that, in my opinion, would be an issue. What it might look like in the beginning, spending a day, a half day. You talk about building relationships. So I think that some type of schedule, I think if, there was something going on in Franklin that, a parent or things like that, and Joyce was talking with us and the board said, for this next week, almost like our situation last time, that went on for about 2 weeks. So to be able to have that level of flexibility, we'd have to work it out to see what the needs are for
And I
sure.
also think just safety-wise, it's important maybe that not everybody knows exactly when somebody's
that's true,
in
too.
the
Exactly
building.
true.
I think that having that little level
Schedules
of
were
not
flexible.
knowing.
Yep.
It's a little bit of a deterrent sometimes, could be too, in terms of, I think we can all work together to.
an example I dealt with once was regarding bus issues, and so the safety officer would be there every morning. For quite some time, even though, was it just to one school? People probably got that message, or some of the kids and parents got the message that, geez, there'll be a policeman there every day. And this is gonna be a positive experience because he's there. But the regular schedule would not have him there all year like that. Or a week or two if you needed it, you have to flex, make it happen. Even if it's there for that opening hour or something.
And I think the point that Dan made earlier, just having that relationship and being able to call somebody if there was something going on. I know the state police have established like a liaison for our schools, which even that alone has been really nice just to know, okay, we have a person that we can call as a contact. And so having this kind of a relationship, I think would be a really, really good thing.
Okay, does say in our agenda that we would have possible action. When we were putting the agenda together, we thought we were on a tighter timeline for the grant. I'm not sure that we necessarily need a motion tonight, but then again, we can get it done tonight. And
That's true. It's
not
up to the
kick the can
board.
down the road.
I'm less worried about, gotta get it in by next Friday kind of.
Jeez. Since we do
Oh
have,
my goodness.
since we do have the time, I guess I would maybe suggest we wait till we have a dollar amount that we're aware of, so we get that kind of out in the public record before actually casting a vote.
Yep.
Well, another way you could do it too is we could have a motion that basically allows us to move forward to pursue the grant, but not approve the grant at this point because we don't know dollar amounts and stuff like that. I just don't want us to get mired down in budgets and everything else and have this get missed.
I don't think Julie will let us forget.
No, I will not.
So you're suggesting a motion to approve moving forward with the grant application?
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
I don't think it needs to be in the application, and I'll support what moving forward. But I would like to, I don't think Highgate has an administrator here tonight.
Nope.
No, but we did discuss it at our administrative
I
retreat.
guess I would like
Yeah.
to see something from the administrative team at the building levels, at least in the initial phase, how they see it working, start brainstorming ideas. I think the concept is good, but I think that they say the devil's in the details. And so if one of the administrative meetings in the next month or so, you could talk a little bit about how you might see it working out, especially what our administrators would see as the priorities for the SRO and get back. So maybe we can hear, before the grant comes along, we have a better understanding how we would implement it.
We're just going to want to be real careful on how much detail we put out in the public. That might have to be an executive session topic. Good for safety and security
I don't
issues.
mind how we get it, but I just think if we move forward, we start to get into the details.
I'm just gonna ask a question just because of protocol and I don't, board roles. Is this something we're supposed to have the detail, or is this something we're supposed to leave to you all as an administrative team? Like we approve it and then you report back to us what you all worked out or something if you.
Well, I think that's what Dawn's
That's what I'm saying, I
asking.
like to report back.
But do you have to even report back, or do we just, I mean, is that, I don't know what the roles are, how that works, if you do that every time, or is, how do we know when something's big enough we want to report back?
I guess I would think a commitment of funds would be important enough to report back.
That's kind of what I was thinking too.
That's a good call.
Okay. Any other discussion?
So, just to be clear, what we're voting on is to start the application. We're not voting to approve the.
Correct.
Right.
We're allowing them to start the application process and to move forward with it. And then when they get back to us with some much better information as far as when and dollar amounts, we'll approve it at that point.
Should we clarify the motion to be something like to authorize the Swanton Police Department to submit a grant application on our behalf?
Yes.
Okay. That's a motion to amend the motion.
Yeah, there you go.
And I can accept it when they do it.
That friendly amendment.
Get pretty formal here.
So all those in favor of approving, allowing Swanton to move forward with the application process and to report back to us once they have some more information, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
You did have Swan Police Department in there, right?
Yes.
Heard you say Swan.
Good point.
I was gonna say Swan, I think.
Motion carries 8-0. Okay, moving on to policy adoption.
No.
No.
Joyce was gonna do a presentation.
Want me to do a presentation now and the tour later?
That was the plan.
Oh, okay.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Just to be confusing. Yeah.
I can do it all later, I can, whatever you want. If I'm gonna do so, tonight I was supposed to do a tour, which I'm going to do later, so I'll show you the building and the grounds, and if it doesn't get too dark, I'll show you that all later. But what the purpose of it was to help you to get to know our school. And so I thought, I definitely want to bring you on the tour, but I also thought, what's another way for you to get to know our school? And it came to me that next week at Back to School Night, what we do at Back to School Night is we revisit all the memories from last year's school year. So I want to show you a school year at Franklin School. So you're going to see all the things that we do, and not all of them, but a good share of the things that we do at Franklin School. Devin's going to get a preview because I'm there, because we're going to see it next week. So don't tell me you're bored. So you just got to plug me in right there, and it should be ready to go. I don't think there's any really bad ones. There's some bad pictures of me.
There's no such thing as a bad picture of each other.
So we plugged in there.
Here we go.
this.
Oh, no, I never.
Is it on,
my-
Joey?
I drink that right now, I'd be
My
awake for
plug
5
in
days.
Okay,
Here you go.
I'm just gonna look.
I didn't
recognizing
drop something in, that's like, I might link this to my drive tomorrow.
Okay. If anybody wants to get a snack, so like you're watching the movie, it's not too long. But, oh, and I wanted, before I even start, Kathy Ovitt, who is our halftime tech person here. Kathy does our slideshows, and she just, like for the graduation one, I don't know how she does it, making sure we have just the right number of pictures for these people, and she's just incredible. So,
I thought, I hate you.
so here we
Don't
go.
mind me.
Whoops. Oh, hold on, somehow it didn't start at the beginning.
You gotta see it all.
Oh, summer was fun, but I'm so excited to start a new school year. We're back at school, there's so much to do. Learn reading and writing and science too. Gonna make new friends, see my good friends again. Our school is really cool. We're happy to be back at school. Back at school. Oh yeah, back at school. Alright, back at school. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're happy to be back at school. I'm gonna listen to my teacher and learn a lot. How to read and write and never stop. Follow classroom rules and set my goals high. Be helpful to others, show respect and be kind. We love to work, we love to play, we love to learn. Every day, a new school year has begun. We love to make learning fun. Yeah! We're back at school, there's so much to do. Learn reading and writing, math and science too. Gonna make new friends, see my good friends again. Our school is really cool. We're happy to be back at school. Back at school. Oh yeah, back at school. Alright, back at school. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're happy to be back at school. We're happy to be back at school. We're happy to be back at school. Yeah, BTS, y'all. Come on. New year, new year, new year. We going back to school. New year, new year, new year. We back to school, we work, we grind, that's right, we back to school, get A's, okay, all day, yeah, a brand new year, I'm gonna give my best, first gotta get the new shoes, cause I stay fresh, new backpack, check, I got my supplies, I got everything I need, so my crazy vibes, no more sleeping in, every day I wake up early, summertime is over, now I'm back at school with my friends, new year, but I'm not worried, new teacher, yes sir, same school or a new school. Make new friends, why? Cause I'm back at school. Turn it up with friends at lunchtime. You're telling jokes standing in the lunch line. Telling stories about your vacation. Racing to your class new year, you are amazing. Better be better than I was last year, with a better mindset this year. Yeah. New year, new year, new year. Hey, we going back to school. New year, yeah, new year, new year. We back to school, we work, we grind, that's right, we back to school, get A's, okay, all day, all my elementary schools, push your crayons up, junior high, middle schools, keep your grades up, all my high schools, push your pens up, college schools, grad students, stand up, we back to school, we work, we grind, that's right, we back to school, get A's, okay, all day.
It's JoJo, but it's my every year. I'm going back to for my last year. That's right, it's time for me to go BTS. Like my questions, and it's time for me to ace my test. Going far on the road, baby, in a row. You already know how this goes. New swag, new class. With the bells ringing, got a blast.
Jump up, it's a good day, it's a good day, it's a good day. Jump up, it's a good day, hooray, hooray. Jump up, it's a good day, it's a good day, it's a good day. Jump up, it's a good day, hooray, hooray. Everybody Everybody playing this band. Shaking and loving. Happy people all over the land. Jump up, it's a good day, it's a good day, it's a good day. Jump up, it's a good day, hooray, hooray. Jump up, it's a good day, it's a good day, it's a good day. Jump up, it's a good day, hooray, hooray. Everybody making a friend. Everybody doing the dance. It's slipping and a sliding, flopping and a flying. Funky people all over the land. Jump up, it's a good day, it's a good day, it's a good day. Jump up, it's a good day, hooray, hooray. Jump up, it's a good day, it's a good day, it's a good day. Jump up, it's a good day, hooray, hooray. You gotta shine, 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 shine. Come on, be yourself today. Shine, 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 shine. Come on, be yourself today. Bopping, rocking like a kangaroo that's hopping, yeah, up and down and jumping around, and I'm feeling good today. I'm popping like some popcorn popping, and I grasshoppers hopping in the sun today. A little bit higher, 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 a little bit higher. Shine, 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 shine. Come on, be yourself today. Shine, 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 shine. Come on, be yourself today. Shine, 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 shine. Come on, be yourself today. Shine, shine, shine.
So it's a year at Franklin School,
That's
and you'll
awesome.
hear about all those things as we go through this year, but I thought that'd be kind of a fun way, because I didn't have kids here tonight. When we had the internal field review, I had kids do the tour, but I kind of hated to have them cut their summer vacation short to tours tonight, so you're stuck with me for the tour. But I thought this way, at least you get to meet some of our kids and teachers and see the
that's good,
activities
right?
that go on, so.
I wanna go to this school, it doesn't look
Well,
like
and you know what?
advertising.
What I always say when it gets done, I was like, do they look like they're having a good time? And the kids are like, yeah. And I'm like, so can we have an even better year this year? Yeah.
But Joyce, truly what, and you see it there, what makes it so special is you had so much community in the picture, so many people
And I
that
know
make
that-
this school, so.
And I will talk about that when we do the tour, because that is something that, this is their school, this is the community school. And everything we do here, this community supports us. And when I do the tour, I'll talk about so many of the different things that the community does. And a lot of these things you saw in here is us giving back to the community that gives so much to us. And thank you for doing that, because I know it's hard sometimes when you don't know the kids or the people, and so I try to keep it short, but still fun.
Yeah, that's fun.
So thank you, and I will definitely talk more later when I'm on the tour.
That was great.
And you're like, no, and just because I'm doing the tour last, nobody's like sneaking out early.
That's next time, right?
Well, you guys can sneak out early. Thank you.
Okay, now we'll go on to the C20 student conduct and discipline policy.
So I did put up the survey that many people did respond to, and you know, are you gonna show it? No. All the respondents said that it looked good just the way it is, which it should. It's exactly the same policy that we currently have with the Missisquoi Valley School District in it. It's essentially a policy that defines things under law and then refers to the fact that we will have and do have school discipline procedures in each of our school, which we do have in writing. And I do have principals here in case they had any questions. They had an opportunity to give feedback too as well. From now on, you're gonna have policies that have gone through the admin team, but because for the start of school and handbooks going out, most of the handbooks reference the fact that there's a conduct and discipline policy. It's not a required policy, it was recommended, so we wanted to get it in before the start of school if possible. And I'm happy to have any questions.
First, you need a motion.
I do.
I'll move adoption of C20 student conduct discipline as presented.
Second.
I'll second.
Discussion.
What were all the comments? Is there anything that we haven't heard?
Just, you had commented about wanting to know and be familiar with the procedures that are in the schools, and we do have that information that we can share with board members. Just for your familiarization of what the processes are in schools.
Right.
Yep.
Hearing no others, all those in favor of adopting the C20 policy as written, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. On to Visbit unemployment insurance document.
Okay, I passed out a one pager. It's a little box on it with some numbers, not that one. That one.
See ya.
That one's for the Highgate barn, like this. Yep, that one. So last month, you gave me the authority to research, unemployment insurance through Vermont School Boards Insurance Trust, rather than being a straight reimbursable, payee as we are, and we have been and historically. Learned a lot through the process, quite a bit of work, about 3 years of gross wage information that had to be handled, and again, looking at MBSD. So we're gonna have almost 20 million in gross wages next year. It's a scary number, but what they look at Visbit is taxable wages. So basically it's up to $8,000 for every one of our employees, and then anyone under $8,000 for part-time employees, it would be whatever their wages are, and then they apply our rate to that taxable wages number. Unfortunately, I did get our rate today, and we are considered not high risk, but we're in the number 6 out of 6 in their little rubric that they calculate upon. And so our rate should be 1.06%. They offered, after a little bit of negotiation, to drop that down to 0.88%. But as you can see here, looking at the historical information and what we paid out the last 3 years, if you look at the fiscal year 21 annual, it's $29,717. That's for 4 quarters, whereas the fiscal year 20 is only 3 because that's what's left if we joined. It is a little bit more. It would cost us a little more money the next 2 years compared to our highest claim year the last 3 years. The lowest it could have been was about 16,000. I ran the calculation on that as well, so it could have, if our risk was lower, it could have saved us money. So I will continue to look at that, but I would ask you to consider all of the pros or advantages to belonging to Visbit for this type of insurance and actually purchasing an unemployment insurance versus being a straight reimbursable employer. They do provide, well, things I talked about before, it is pooled, it is averaged with everyone in it. It is a 3-year average, so while our rates may be higher right now, potential is it would go down. And part of the reason I feel strongly about that is they do advocate and they help us, they support us legally and administratively to combat or fight claims. And they have a very high success rate in doing so. And so we gain all that support, and all that burden is not on our office and our staff to do that. Not that we don't do a wonderful job at that. Pierrette and our HR office are very successful in working through those processes, but just having that extra support, I think really mitigates our risk moving forward. Again, legal support, admin support, they help dispute claims. There's a ton of reporting that they provide. They do, it is easier to budget for a flat amount. That's one of the things I shared with you I'm worried about, is we do have, one more claim and we would blow the 29,000 right away. Some of the claims we've had have been $10,000 claims. and it's tough to budget for those.
It's people taking advantage.
And it stays for a while, it's 18 months, so, we can end up
Right.
paying and they compound.
Yeah.
I like that there would be a max on our liability. Again, it's the pooling, that's attractive to me because as more people join, they continue to be successful, combating claims or denying claims and working through those processes, and theoretically, everyone's, rates should go down. So I just wanted to put that out there. Here's the numbers. It's a board's decision if you want me to move forward. I just wanted you to be aware of kind of the package that I'm looking at compared to what we have now, where basically there's a claim put in, we do the best we can. Pierrette does a wonderful job with our HR department. But the numbers continue to go up. So we just pay the bill when it comes in a lot of the time now, so.
I just think it's too bad.
I know, I was hoping for the low rate. When she said we were 6 out of 6, I was very discouraged.
Yeah.
But it's always good to look at things too, but I just wanted you to be aware of the difference. And I will say that my recommendation is still to move forward with Visit, but that's because I have a wonderful experience with them. Even throughout this process, the support that they provide
Right.
is very worthwhile, and there is a dollar figure that can be applied to that with legal costs and administrative costs that they support. So that's the information, but the board can do with as you wish. I can stop it here, we can evaluate another time, or if you'd like to move forward, I have documents to do that as well.
I have a question, but when you
Yeah.
say they've been really supportive, like you kind of mentioned too that they could prevent some of this too with the legal counsel. It could save us money in the long term.
It could, yeah. Yeah, and also on claiming, because she actually sent me their annual report that they report out on. I don't know the percentage off the top of my head, but they are very successful in disputing claims. Because there's an office dedicated to doing that, and they have legal support, and they do it all the time, and it's for 200 schools, and, and again, we are doing a good job on that on our own, but it is time and resources and opportunity costs from our office to do that.
Yeah.
But we can continue to do that.
There's a question, when you say we do it on our own, do we get legal counsel?
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes there is a cost. I mean, it's, yes, we do the research, we call the Department of Labor and fight that claim, so to speak. But sometimes obviously we get legal counsel, so there is an additional cost when we do get that legal counsel, because, sometimes we can figure it out on our own, and other times, as you know, this is a legal issue, and sometimes we need help from an attorney.
Why I asked, I assume, and I may be wrong, but the reimbursable amounts are the amounts we pay, not necessarily the amounts we pay for legal counsel.
No, I didn't isolate just that associated legal costs, no. But as you know, that can add up pretty quickly.
Do you have a gut feeling if that's $1,000, $10,000, just kind of?
For termination,
Yeah.
I would not say it's $10,000. Depending on the year, and I've got a whole year under my belt, so it was not. It would have been under $1,000 in terms of that. But it depends on how tricky the situation is and how multifaceted it is.
And I shared with you that one of the things I'm concerned about is it seems like our support staff seem to be taking advantage of unemployment a little bit more, and they have been actually successful in doing so, whereas before they were always denied because they had a return to work date. That's one of my concerns I see is I feel like
it's a growth area.
Yeah, and more times than not, it seems to be they're in support of the employee and not the employer, but that's just.
See, my guess is that probably any given year, it looks like we have a couple of pretty good-sized claims each year. They should probably with at least $2,000 in legal fees. I mean, attorneys don't work for nothing. If you get them $4,000 a few phone calls, you're looking at $2,000-3,000.
Easy.
So you may be pretty much in an even stage the last couple of years if you broke into it.
Do we get an attorney every time?
Probably not.
Depends on the circumstance. I mean, I obviously have a lot of training and experience in, hiring and termination, but sometimes you have to run that letter past an attorney, or not everything is black and white.
I mean, we're looking at starting third quarter if we did, so that obviously we're not tied to a fiscal year starting, so
No.
what would be the,
We could try for a quarter and then stop.
or we could hold off and see if we could get our rate down before we join.
The rate that she provided for me, because I gave her 4 years of information, including the current year's estimates, would be set for next year too. But we could look at it for fiscal year 22.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did she give you a rationale why we rated so poorly?
It's, well, again, we are pooled with everyone else and all of that, but she looked at 3 years of claims data from the Department of Labor and it's, some of it is the number of claims, not necessarily the dollar amount of the claims, but then also we had several claims, but we also had some that were more expensive claims. But also, I mean, we're a $20 million gross wages employer, and this would be new for us, so I'm assuming there's a risk calculation there too. But
We are gaining some of that predictability, some of the smoothing benefit by pooling for
R3,
5 with
our 3 schools.
yeah, by pooling all the schools together, you do just reduce the variance by having a larger number of people involved. And I guess I mean, there's, in the insurance world, there's typically a premium to pay for predictability.
Right.
Yes.
Which is why it doesn't surprise me that they're asking for a little more than our average. I guess I'm surprised that they're asking for more than our highest year in 3, which is what kind of, I don't
It's
know.
a cushion. We want the cushion.
Yeah, and so
Well, and I think they're,
We don't want to lose.
yeah, again, you're purchasing, like you said, you're purchasing insurance, you're not just paying a claim.
Right.
And so there's some work to that. Whatever the board's desire is, I always feel it's good. I learned a lot looking at this information. I'm happy to look at it all the time because it's a great process. And I like bringing new ideas, but whatever you decide to do is fine with me.
Based on my 50-year history with us, I want to move that we move forward and accept and move our insurance to this. If it's voted down, there's no hard feelings, but I just feel that we're a bigger entity, and I think the rates increased, also people getting more savvy. For many years, the support staff did not get the foot in the door, and now it's there, it's gonna continue, so. Even though it's a big hit, I'm hoping 2 years from now, the board looks at it and it's going down the other way. So I'm gonna move, that,
Talking 1% on the 20.
the board move forward.
I'll second it.
1% on the 20.
So Don is moving that we move forward with Visbit unemployment insurance, and Terry seconded it. Any discussion?
you mentioned that it caps our loss, there's stop loss built into this, is that what I heard? Or it,
Well,
just because it gives us the fixed
it
amount
gives
for
us
the
a
year,
fixed amount for the year.
and then premiums would adjust the following year if we had a.
Well, this would be
positive.
locked in for 2 years, basically, is what she provided for me, so it would not go up next year.
Is there a stop loss product for unemployment insurance that we could, to cap our losses, or to cap the claims we might have to pay if we remain as
Currently, is there any rubric for
a, is there
that?
one on the market, I guess?
Oh,
I'm asking.
I don't know that, I'm sorry. I can research that if you'd like.
I think the last meeting you reported to us how many schools participate in this, but I think the majority of the schools.
200.
Yeah, there's pages and pages, I didn't count them, but there's, most of the school districts in the state and supervisory unions in the state do work with Visbit for their unemployment. I do have the list here if anybody wants to look at it. And it also has all of their rate information on it.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of moving forward with the Visbit unemployment insurance, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. We're gonna have to, I don't know what the numbers are, so I'm gonna have to have ayes, raise your hand. 3, noes.
I'm undecided. I just
So-
kinda want a little bit more information, I guess.
So you're gonna abstain?
Yep.
So motion's not carried. 3, 4, 1.
What's our plan to just get more information or just find out about the other stuff?
I don't know what additional, I can
And hopefully we get less and as
mean,
our
this-
rates go down, we can look at it.
This
again.
is definitely something worth continuing to look at. I don't
Yeah.
think we should.
Certainly appreciate
fall
it bringing it to
through
us, yeah.
Yeah, next year I'll run the numbers again and see if they got, yeah, I mean, she negotiated with me kind of on the phone, which I thought was interesting, with Bisbit, because I think they were just, you know,
So when is their year? July 1st? So
they're on a fiscal year too.
so on July 1st.
But at any time, at any quarter, because we're a straight
No, I
reimbursable.
know that, but if we
yeah.
were gonna look at it again, when should we look at it? In 2021?
I would probably do it next year, even though she told me she gave me a rate for the next 2 years. I mean, it's the harm in trying. I know the process now. We learned we created the report to be able to do all this in our financial system,
So
so.
we should be asking them next April or May? Would you say?
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to new business, which we'll start with hiring updates.
So we have two folks for hire. We have a special educator for middle school, Amber Fitzgerald, that will be looking for authorization for the board chair to sign. And we have a agribusiness mechanics teacher, Peter Beers, for hire for MDU as well. We'd also be looking for a authorization. That should be it. I don't think we're feeling pretty full.
So at this point, I'd entertain a motion to allow the board chair to sign these contracts.
So moved.
Who said it? Pete, okay.
I'll second.
Apparently my hearing's not very good tonight. Discussion?
Are these budgeted positions?
Absolutely.
Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of allowing the board chair to sign these contracts, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Let's see, Highgate bond project, next steps.
Okay. So I handed out 2 documents just because I know some of you probably are not very familiar currently with the Highgate bond project. One is a project list of the proposed projects, dollar amounts, contingencies, and the amount of the approved bond. Enjoy that at your leisure. Then I'm giving you basically the other one is at the top section, it says 20 years at the top. It says that's a 20-year payout on the bond. Then there's a box that represents the process that's we're going through for a bond process, kind of the timeline. Highgate is actually going to participate. They had their bond approval from the taxpayers last March, as you know, but they're going to be participating in a winter series bond, which is a little different than what I've done before. Typically, it's in the summer. So I'll be starting that application process with the Vermont Bond Bank in January or February, as you can see here. And then in December, and then in January or February, we will find out if we've been approved or not. I have no reason to believe that we would not be. And then underneath that is a projected timeline. We're still working on this project timeline. Estimates at this point in time, but we do want to get the process starting. I think that's Chris's intention as well. We have met with the new facility director in Highgate just yesterday. Julie, myself, Paul Gregoire from MVU, because he's currently going through a large-scale bond project, and the new facility director, Scott Martin. Thank you. We did just kind of threw out ideas. Scott, it was good to hear, where he is in his building right now and what's kind of on his mind. We are meeting tomorrow, Julie, myself, and Paul, with a construction management company to kind of pick their brain about what might be the best strategy to move forward. Highgate, as you can see, has a lot of items that they're addressing. So the scale of the project, 2.32 million, but also it's just a vast amount of items that need to be taken care of. They did have a facility assessment completed by Ruggiano Engineering. It's actually Tyler Mumley now, prior to this bond proposal. But given the fact that it's a new facility director, a new board, and the fact that Paul is going through a large scale project right now and some of the things we've learned from that, at MVU. We want to pick the brain of people who know and try to see what's the best strategy. Meaning, do we hire a construction management company first? Do we go with like a pre-construction design build kind of a approach, or do we hire the engineer and architects first? All those RFPs need to go out sooner rather than later. This process needs to get going. So after our meeting tomorrow, we'll come back together next Monday and kind of develop the plan to draft those RFPs if the board will allow us to do that.
I have one question. How come Scott's not included tomorrow? Because that's part, you're talking about part of this, the Highgate bond.
I was gonna share all the information with him directly when I left, but it's kind of piggybacking on another meeting. I don't think,
We're meeting with the construction management just to get some suggestions, not to have them give us direction, but we wanted to get some feedback.
May I ask who you're meeting, who it is, who's your company? You said you're meeting with a construction management company, a manager? Would you rather go in executive session and talk about it?
I guess.
I think it's fine. I want to assure everyone that this process still needs to go out to bid and everything. Right now, we're gathering information. So it is the company that happens to be the construction management company for MVU, but this is purely an informational gathering. There will be no promises made. We're just looking for, because we've been happy with the process at MVU as far as the construction management company is involved. I will say that Scott Martin is also reaching out to the Tyler Munley who performed the assessment. He may have already done so today, I'm not sure, but I haven't had a chance to follow up with him. He wanted to, gain as much knowledge as he could about what was in the assessment, what wasn't in the assessment. Scott also, because he's a brand new facility director, he's getting his feet wet, he's learning the building, he's finding things that maybe were not realized before. And so we're working through that too and how we can,
So he's in that meeting tomorrow?
Scott is not coming to the meeting tomorrow. I am relaying, or we will relay the information to him, and it's not our decision to make, it's just kind of an information gathering. I can see if he wants to come. I think he was he has a lot going on right now trying to get ready for school, so, and we had already taken up 2 hours of his time yesterday and 2 more next Monday. But I'm happy to do that if you want, Chris.
I would like him invited, personally.
I think he knew about it, I don't want you to think he didn't know about it. Though.
Yeah. If he is too busy, well, I can understand that too.
It's 2 hours well spent.
I do think it's 2 hours well spent. I do think he needs to be involved in this process.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
That was, I was in the interviewing committee that hired him, and that was one of the questions that he would be involved in this. If he was prepared to be involved in this, and I feel he should be. So he knew what he was jumping into.
Oh, yeah.
And he also has a stake in it because he's a taxpayer. So I like the idea that it's his money too. So.
We scheduled that meeting kind of today. It actually got changed. The time even,
Does that mean that Swan and Franklin don't have to pay for any of that?
That's not what I meant by that.
So we're also exploring to what I was saying about him being a new facility director and really learning his building. We're also, things are surfacing. We knew that when Highgate went through the long list of suggestions in the facility assessment that by no means was it all encompassing, plus there's the maximum amount that taxpayers can afford. But there are things that are coming up, like they are in every building, that we want to see if we can address at the same time. So
Because we're there before.
yeah. But we're exploring other strategies and possibilities as far as like financing and how we can make other things work either as an extension of this or within the bond. All things we'll talk about. It's just stuff I'm researching right now, just trying to maximize the next year project.
Okay.
No promises, I'm not asking for money or anything like that.
Another question I had that you mentioned that we're going to be applying for a winter pool winter series bond. What's that?
They offer 2 a year because of the merger. The bond bank, Vermont Municipal Bond Bank, I'm sorry, offers a summer series and a winter series. I think we had talked about this in Highgate last time, not at the MVSD board. Basically, because of the merger, we had to secure the debt, and so I've entered into a bond anticipation note to secure that debt so that it would transfer to MVSD. But because of the uncertainty of the merger at the point in time when I would have needed to apply for the summer series, the bond bank and our legal counsel that we're required to have for that process advised that we not apply because there was a chance that we could have been denied because of the uncertainty of where we were going to be with the merger. He didn't think it would happen, but even the thought of that and him saying that at all scared me, and we weren't doing the work until next summer anyway, so we still have time. So all it does is push us back 6 months as far as the application, and we still have the money in time. And then there was less risk. So, yeah.
Was that with Paul Giuliani?
Paul Giuliani. Yeah, and
He's
I
been doing
trust
this for a
him
long,
very
long
much.
time.
He's like,
He's the guy to go to the bank with.
yeah. So we have a meeting on Monday, another planning meeting to follow up on all the things that people are researching. And then I'm looking to see if the board will approve us moving forward with launching the RFPs, although I realize that's a little maybe unacceptable right now because I'm not sure what we're going to be launching.
Would you want,
If it's gonna
would
be one or
September
two.
3rd be too late?
I'll know more tomorrow, unfortunately. We don't have that meeting until tomorrow. We know that we have to launch for engineering and construction management. I don't know the order. And that's what we're trying to decide, what makes more sense. What we don't want to do is end up with finger pointing at the end of a project. That's what we're trying to avoid.
When do we meet next, September 3rd?
Correct. It wouldn't be awful. I could do all the background work. I could get it all ready for you. I can bring it to you.
I'd feel more comfortable with that.
Yeah, it's just, I know Paul's experience with his project, he felt like they were a little bit later than they wanted to be, so I just wanna make sure that we don't reach that point. But there's some stuff I can do in the background, if you're comfortable with me doing that, to get ready. But I just did wanna give you a little background as to the conversations. But.
I had a question about this, and that is, the Highgate board went through all this, and when I'm looking at it, I thought it was further along based on the fact that it went to the voters and the voters approved it. But it doesn't sound like it is. I'm just curious as to who got the whole thing going. And it's pretty impressive that you got it going. Is that you and the board over in Highgate?
Yeah, Highgate board.
And you
And
pull
the
out these
Highgate-
numbers and
Well, like Laura said, we hired Reggiano, Tyler Mumley, and they did a facility assessment and presented it for us, and we picked out of what they presented for us what we felt was necessity to put in the bond.
And
And we
that's
put it
how
in
it
front of the
is.
voters, and the voters approved it.
Okay, so that was nice. Thank you.
And so we have a booklet of preliminary information that's pretty comprehensive. I mean, I think they did a pretty comprehensive job, but it's not engineering specs that you can then take to a construction manager and say, do my project. Yeah.
But it sounds like we're gonna be working on this for a while, so it's good that we have more information.
So I will bring more, just know that that's what we're doing right now.
Building needs that.
Thank you, Laura. On to other business, superintendent.
So I just quickly, because it's pretty dark out there, but I want Joyce to be able to give the tour before it gets too dark. But
We're past that so much. I think that's that much.
The sun went down.
I got my pencil light.
We can all go out with our little, with our lights.
Saw a picture.
All right, I'm still gonna be quick, brief. We have in-service this week. We've been traveling around, getting into the schools, spent some time in Highgate today doing, looking at their PBIS behavioral model and restorative practices. Chris Palmer did a wonderful job working with the teachers, and it was fun. I was sitting at a table, we were doing the projects together, and all of a sudden Pat introduced me, and the teacher next to me did, and she's like, "Where is she?" And I'm like, "I'm right here." She jumped about 6 feet. It was fun. And today went to the potluck here in Franklin, and I'm hoping to get into Swanton and MVU over the next 2 days as well to greet our teachers. Tomorrow is our whole faculty welcome that will start tomorrow morning at MVU in the theater. Can we get in the front door yet?
No.
Darn it. Although we are really close because it's looking pretty good. But we will be in the theater, though I understand there will not be air conditioning. Correct. So
We're close.
We
Not
are,
yet.
we're very close. And I'll be doing a welcome for our staff. I'm inviting all of you to come, anyone who's available. It would be lovely. I'm certainly going to thank the board for all of its support, getting started as a new school district. And if anybody wants to come, shoot me an email or find me in the morning so I know you're there, so I won't forget somebody.
7:30?
8 o'clock. You're welcome to come before that. There's a
No, I'm
breakfast.
just kidding.
There is a breakfast. And then we are having Dr. Eric Twaddell, who is superintendent of Adelaide Stevenson School District in, I think, California, which is the place where professional learning communities really took off and all that research is done. And he's going to talk to the faculty about using PLCs and to address social and emotional learning of kids and putting it right into the curriculum. So we're very excited to have him address the entire faculty, and then he's going to do some work with folks at MVU, and then other teachers are doing either math work or they're doing mind play, which is literacy instruction. So we're pretty excited about the day tomorrow, and I did want to invite you all, anyone who's available, to come tomorrow. So that's it from me.
I'm gonna go back and clarify something I said earlier about taxpayer being involved. What I meant by that is Scott is a taxpayer within this district. Paul is not. I'm glad Paul's involved because he has experience. Scott, that was my mention of this taxpayer part. Scott is part of this district. I didn't mean to.
Isn't Paul a Franklin resident?
No.
I believe he lives
In Berkshire.
further
Oh, yes.
east.
Chris,
Yes.
is Scott Martin that used to work in Highgate
Yeah.
years
Yeah.
ago? Oh,
Yep.
he's the director now?
Yes.
He lives on
Yes.
He lives on
Of course, my point is, having done a lot of construction projects, I always felt that the people in the building being discussed need to be involved as much as anything.
Oh,
It's nothing against Paul, I know he's had a lot of experience, but this fellow's gonna live with whatever.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
And I hope you don't feel like we don't agree with that, and it hasn't been started that way. This was just a researching, we all got our assignments and research, and we're all coming back with information kind of a thing, so I don't want you to think that at all. Yeah, no, he's definitely taking the lead on it.
Oh my God.
We're
Okay.
supporting, yep.
So we're on to future agenda items. Possible discussions, VSBA. We've reached out, but we haven't heard, right?
I did hear today.
Oh, we heard today.
So somebody should be able to come
Okay.
next meeting.
For the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay. And then,
Next meeting will be at MVU.
so future meeting, next meeting will be at MVU, in the library at 6:30 on September 3rd.
You did a nice job at this meeting.
The front doors will be open.
I like this.
We're color coding it so Julie can pay attention to where she's presenting.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll be able to come in. You should be able to have a tour on that date as well, hopefully.
And I think the library.
Lease, are we still,
What we're doing with the lease at this point, because it's not ready, because he's still researching, we're gonna do a memo and extend the other until such time as we renegotiate.
okay, so we are ready for our tour.
Okay, wait, I have a question. I just would like to add to your future agenda items is I would like an update on the high school math and science programs. There were some changes made several years ago, and there were some updates last year. And as a graduated, but as a business owner, I just think, all areas of education are very important. And I hope all kids in all criteria have advanced opportunities. So any chance we can have advanced math and science and English and ag and arts early on as a freshman, especially for kids that know their path I encourage that, and I would love to hear a report back to the board on where those stand. Because I think, it's a pretty new board, and so I think it's a great learning opportunity and for parents to see what the plan is.
Okay.
It's a good idea because we were talking about science being more curriculum.
Absolutely, we are.
Chris, one more thing. The only reason I knew it was here tonight is because I was at the last meeting. I went on the NSU, and when you click to see more details, all it tells you is time and what it is, not where.
Oh,
That's right.
If you look under board, there's a link that says board info, and under the board info, the agenda is there, and the full agenda you just saw this evening.
I went to the NVSD board info, and I did not see a place.
You said
It's
you
not on
went.
the calendar.
I went to
It's
the
on the
calendar on
But if you click on
NSU.
details on
And
the
then I
calendar, it
went
doesn't show
to,
it.
tried with the NVSD info, and that didn't come in either, so I don't know.
I went there.
I don't know, I looked at a couple different places.
Did you go through the MVSD website or the old website?
MVSD.
Yeah, because he went through the old website.
All the old website,
Related to that, unless I'm missing it, we still don't show up in the messenger with all events. You send it to the messenger?
I send it every time,
Somebody
John,
follow
I
up, and I don't
can't,
like follow up.
yeah, I can't
mean,
control what
This has
they
been an ongoing
do.
problem now for 2 years.
They've fallen
Our
apart.
junior coming, this was a problem, and other places are there, and events have not done
letting it go.
But I would like to mention, even though I'm not an advocate necessarily for the messenger, I would say the new delivery system by coming in the US mail is being well received. And so I think more and more people are going to be getting the messenger with their mailed rate. So I just think if we could get there and say where we're going to be and when we're going to be there, it would be great.
Messenger takes about 3 minutes to get through it.
My best,
I don't know if this would be any issue or not, but some of us are really literal. When I first saw that Highgate Library, I thought, oh, we're going to the library instead of to the school. So I don't know if anybody, I think it's pretty clear that we're not, I just don't know if other people might.
think that.
Okay.
That's just a little,
We can add school in there.
it seems so silly.
Yep. we can
Okay,
do
I'm gonna
that.
get you up and moving. Before I take you on the tour, anybody not going on the tour, you guys help yourselves, we got lots of leftovers.